be here. Thank you. So I want to talk about as I see it, if there's a woman in the relationship, then the most important ingredient in the relationship, which is the woman. Fully emerged or fully in her power. And so if I could describe what I do, it's to reunite women with their power. And I call this channeling the oracle between your legs. Yes, we'll get a little provocative. Now, it's just an exciting time for women that we can have an extraordinary amount of success, unprecedented amount of opportunity, and I also see the flip side where you look up and you see I've really been out there kicking ass and have my version of success in life or love or business, and actually I don't feel more juicy or alive. I don't actually feel successful. And then I see that success, our version of it, especially as women, comes with a price tag of our power. And I don't think this is just sad, I think it's an epidemic. And the women that I work with, that's not how they end up. But they start out overwhelmed or really disconnected, unempowered, disempowered, anxious, kind of caught in body loathing and self-loathing. And this is certainly, I spent the majority of my life in this space of a deep mistrust of being in a woman's body. And if I could have, I would have switched. I did everything I could to get out of a woman's body, or ignore it as much as I could. And for me, that came with a long time of eating disorder and anorexia. And at a certain point, I weighed about 95 pounds on this frame, which it's some are thinner than others. It's just that I got there by an incredibly punishing, self-negating way of being in the world, and of exercising up to 6 hours a day and eating only the amount that would fit in a fist. And I had a real starving artist mentality, just was hell-bent on under-earning and struggling. And my late relationships were kind of, I call it my fatal attraction era of not so much love and satisfaction there. And this is, I think, mirrored in way too many women. So I want to start with a story. I'm going to retell an Edgar Allan Poe tale to give us a sense of why this is and the way out as I see it. So this is a retelling of the Telltale Heart. So in it, we have a heroine instead of the hero, kind of an anti-heroine, and I call her Eva. And Eva is just incredibly mistrustful of her neighbor because this neighbor seems to have potent powers, and it drives her nuts day in, day out. She gets obsessed by the potent powers of her neighbor, so much so that she plots how she's going to kill the neighbor. So Eva does it. She kills her neighbor, chops her up in little pieces, and sticks her underneath the floorboards of her house. Okay, I know this is dark. Bear with me, we're getting there. This shall bear out. And so she thinks, phew, we've done it, I've gotten rid of those potent powers. And then Eva starts to hear the beat, beat, beat of her dead woman's heart. And she thinks, this is impossible. I chopped her up in little pieces. She's underneath the floorboards. I shouldn't hear the beat, beat, beat of her heart. And, Poe is big on the moral of the story and the moral of the story is you can't actually get rid of anything by shoving it underneath the floorboards. And eventually, our anti-heroine, Eva, goes crazy and calls the authorities on herself. End of story. But for our telling, what is buried under there is our own potent power, especially as women. And that the beat, beat, beat of that power's heart comes up rather incongruously, and it comes up as depression, or it comes up as body loathing, or it comes up as really unsatisfying relationships. It's the voice of our power, but it's muffled and incongruent, but there are signs nonetheless. And why we chop it up in little pieces and stuff it under there, well, you're no stranger to knowing that we swim around in a world that has overindulged in the masculine, and we as women too often say well, here's the knife of the patriarchy, I'm gonna put this right here. So we play along a little bit. So I found myself in my own life, ow, I would like a way out of this. I really would like to reconnect to some kind of knowing, some kind of satisfaction, some kind of peace in this body, in this woman's body. So I thought I have spent my life looking outside of myself, at the person who was doing it better than me, copying so-and-so, looking for divine guidance outside of me. So what if I looked within? That's probably a concept we're familiar with. It's not out there, it's within. So I was like, where? Like my toe, my heart, where actually in myself is this divine guidance, this knowing, this satisfaction, this life energy. So you might be with me, right, on the oracle part, but the between your legs part. So I'll give you some clues. Oracle is loosely defined as divine guidance, as wise counsel or infallible wisdom. So I started gathering clues. And the first I thought, all right, well, I'm looking for some sacred. I'm looking for some divine guidance here. It just so happens that the word sacred shares the same root as the word sacrum. So these very beautiful bones in your body, right, that house actually all your lady parts, these are actually sacred bones. I thought that's very interesting. This, like, down there, my genitals might be sacred. It just so happens, another clue, the word genitals is the same root as genesis, to begin, to create. So it is no accident that the very lady parts that can create life itself are housed in these sacred bones. And I thought, wow, down there, that's a lot more attention than I ever gave down there, right? And this word that most of us use reminds me a little bit of down under, like Australia. And it just so happens that, there were Aboriginal people in Australia before the white people got there, but the white people that were brought there were the convicts from England. So all the little pieces, all that stuff they didn't want to deal with, they just put under the floorboards down there in Australia. So another clue came when I was studying holistic nutrition way back. And the Chinese 5-element theory divides the body from the belly button down and the belly button up and matches foods with it that really would nourish the body from the reproductive organs, genitals, etc., heart, and divides it with foods that grow from the ground down and the ground up. So things like leafy green vegetables are really great for your heart, and things like rutabagas and turnips and carrots. The root vegetables are really good for your reproductive system. I thought it was so interesting because the root chakra, you're familiar with the chakra system, which is where it says that there's 7 energy systems in the body, and the root chakra, which is at the base of the sacrum, is the energetic center for power, is the energetic center for sex, and is the energetic center for money as well. And the last clue that I gathered was in starting to admit, okay, maybe the lady parts have something to do with it, and finding out that actually a beautiful word in Sanskrit for lady parts called yoni translates as the gateway to life. And if you think about it, none of us got here except through someone's yoni. If it wasn't actual, there's other ways out, but literally or figuratively, we all got here through that gate of life. And in fact, in temples, in times when goddesses were worshipped just as much as gods, that the entrances to temples either had a symbol of a yoni or actually were a symbol of a yoni. You had to pass through the symbol of this life-giving element to worship. So I started to put the clues together, and I thought, well, sex energy could be sacred, and that's creative energy, and that's what's life itself, which is the most sacred thing that there is. So then maybe this life-making spot on my body is key, hence the oracle between your legs. So I started to give it a shot. Okay, what the heck? It's not been working so well with me looking for guidance out there, so let me ask. So I started small, and I just said, okay, oracle, went to the grocery store, which produce item would you like? And I would just gravitate to the guava. And when I got say, okay, Oracle, do we turn right or left at the stoplight? Where's the parking spot? You know, follow the guidance there. I started to get my Oracle feet underneath me. And I remember an instance where my husband was looking to buy a company, and he'd just come from the meeting where they had looked through all the financials and profit and loss statements, and he was thinking it was a great move, and he said, well, what does your Oracle think? I said, no. Not the first time that my Oracle had a piece of advice that flew in the face of rational wisdom. And it turned out the next day he found out that they were lying, the information had been misrepresented, and if he had made that financial decision, it would have been a disaster. And lately, I've kind of got this going, right? In my latest program, my latest offering, where I work with women to help them channel the Oracle between their legs, it's called the Embodiment Experience. And I just had a deep dialogue the whole way through, where I couldn't send an email, or I couldn't put the words just like so unless I got the go-ahead from the Oracle. And every time I have had this dialogue or this conversation, that offering or that program has been the right fit. It felt good. It like had that it factor. It really served. Every time I didn't include her, or just kind of shut the doors down there, it had flopped. And so much so that I thought, you know, I need to go plan B. I need to stop this. So I'd like to leave you with the offering to start asking. Start small, right? So you know where. I gave you a geographical clue. You know where to ask. And put your hand there right now. If you're really adventurous, you can go all the way down there. Otherwise, you can put your hand right beneath your belly button, above your pubic bone. And if you're a man, you probably have to wait on that one and ask permission before you put your hand on anybody's Oracle. So, just a presence, what we're talking about here, and I just invite you to start the conversation and to ask. And start in the grocery store. Which piece of produce are you drawn to? To draw your intuition in through this woman's body and start a conversation. And then once you got your conversation going, bring it to bigger and bigger questions. Because it turns out that this woman's body is not at odds with you. She wants what you want. It turns out that she is hooked up to incredible, infallible guidance and divine wisdom. And it is hooked up to that life-giving energy, that she is the place you can consult to get the guidance to continue to emerge and become the woman you were made to be. So I'd like to start wrapping this up. This is a radical act, right? It's pretty provocative, a pretty remarkable thing to do. So I want to start wrapping us up with a poem I surely wish I had written, but I had to leave it to one of the greatest, wildest poetesses of our times, Audre Lorde. So she says, does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? And one last clue before I let us all go is, just in case you might be about to toss this all out as a bit too provocative, a bit too profane, the word profane or profanity, the root of pro means outside, the root of fanus, vanity, profane, fanus means temple. So the word profanity means that which has been cast outside of the temple. So I do invite you and offer you to bring back into your wise, sexy, powerful woman's body that which has been buried under or cast out for you for way too long. Thank you.